We're on.
Oh, we're on.
Yeah.
So are you going to tell them what we're going to talk about this week?
We're going to be talking, I guess, a bit more about lockdown and maybe about motivation and productivity and stuff like that.
Productivity. Oh, right. You didn't tell me about that. I was expecting motivation. I think it's actually very apt that we talk about motivation today because, and I think I mentioned this to you earlier on this morning, for the first time since I can remember for a long time, I just didn't want to get out of bed.
Oh.
I was just so warm and comfortable in my bed, and I know for me. It's not a standard working day today, and I just thought, do you know what? I just want to stay here. I just don't want to get out.
Do you actually not get that?
Pardon?
Do you actually not get that? Is that not a normal thing for you?
No, not at all.
Really?
No. Normally I wake up and think, right, okay, I'm awake now. Got to get up.
That's interesting.
So, actually, it is interesting because your normal response when you wake up is
no.
How long can I prolong this?
No, not always, not every day. But I wouldn't say it hasn't happened in years. I'd say it happens to me at least once a month, surely.
Okay, well, I think the first observation then we've made is that different people get motivated in different ways, obviously. So I don't need to get motivated to get up in the morning. I kind of naturally have that. I always have things I want to get on and do.
Yeah, but you also have work. You're also employed.
Yeah, and I'm lucky I have work and a job to do. Not everybody has that. Although, of course, a lot of people have jobs, but they're not motivated within them, which I think is very sad. But, I do have things that I want to do during the day. And, well, you know me, I'm one of these people that actually find it more difficult not to do things than to do things. What I mean by that is that I don't often sit down and just do nothing. I kind of feel that's wasting time. I'm not very good at the concept of what I think is wasting time. And part of my problem is I actually have to learn that sometimes doing nothing is a good thing.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. And I think that's one thing that I think I struggled with having finished university. Do you remember we had this conversation before when I kind of said, I don't know how to be productive outside of education. I have no concept of productivity and motivation outside of education because I haven't been outside an educational system. So I've had to do work, I've had to do homework, I've had to do this. And then all of a sudden I didn't have that. So I was like...
And you had to create new motivations for yourself that were... Because your motivation was around studying, essentially, around, something to do with a qualification or whatever it might be. And now you haven't said that's all taken away. So you have to discover new motivations or invent new motivations.
I think it's not only motivations. I think it's also that, in a way, it's about approval.
Approval?
Yeah, because,
But is that seeking other people's approval or seeking your own approval?
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that, in school, you're seeking other people's approval. You're waiting for your mark. You're waiting for this. You're going to get some kind of reward. I think it's a reward system. That's what it is. You're waiting for a reward. Whereas now, when you're doing stuff, you have to do it for your own approval and your own reward. And
I think, again, just to maybe explain to listeners, if they're not aware, of course, I'm an employee. I work for somebody. I have an employer. You don't have an employer. You effectively work for yourself at the moment. Mm-hmm. So again, a lot of people get approval through work. They get it through their peers at work. They get it through their employer. Or hopefully they do get approval that way. But you've got nobody like an employer or a group of work colleagues that say, oh, well done, good job today, or do you see what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of saying. That I think, and that's, I don't know if motivation is I've lost my words. I don't know if motivation, productivity, and this idea of seeking approval or praise is interlinked. I think because we grow up in a system, the school system is in such a way that you're waiting for that kind of approval and reward. You'd get a sticker or you'd get a good grade, which meant this.
You get a star. I remember when you were in junior school and you used to come back with a star or something like that.
Yeah, but then when you're not getting any of that, it's a bit like Pavlov's dog in a weird way.
Yeah, take the approval away and then, well, why am I doing this?
Yeah. And I think,
so how have you invented your approval mechanism, if I can put it that way?
I think sometimes I have to take a step back and kind of either write it down and think to myself and be like, hang on a minute, I've done this and this and this.
And actually that's quite good.
Yeah.
So you're having to set yourself goals, but those goals also, I think, have to be achievable, if you see what I mean. There's no point setting yourself goals if there's no way that you're ever likely to achieve them. And yes, it's fine to push yourself, but there's no point flogging yourself to no end.
Yeah, I think I think what I've kind of come to understand is trusting the process and taking everything step by step and kind of acknowledging the steps I'm taking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's all part of motivation as well. When some people, obviously we're talking about lockdown and motivation, and lockdown is difficult for everybody. And I think particularly in this second phase of lockdown, being in the winter when the days are shorter, you can't go outside in the same way that we could during the first lockdown because it's miserable outside. And also it's just gone on, and people just don't know where it's going to end. People are losing motivation. So what do they do about that? Well, I think what you've just said about your own experience having finished university, not having those reward systems, is that you have to invent your own reward systems. You have to invent your own kind of approval systems and have it in little steps, little steps at a time. Think of something every day, every week that is not a giant leap, but something that will just move you forward.
Yeah. I like to have checklists, for example, for the day or the week and stuff, and I kind of think, yep, I did that little task that I had, yep, I did this, because that makes me feel a bit accomplished. But I do think also sometimes speaking to someone else is helpful, because then they can also, in a way, I guess you do get their approval, but, sometimes someone else who isn't you will point out the things you've accomplished because you minimize them yourself.
But again, I think you're particularly one of these people, and tell me if I'm wrong, that you quite like making. I remember I was very, what's the word I'm looking for? I was really pleased to see this in a way that when you were studying, and you've done it post-studying, when you've been trying to develop new goals and aspirations, you make like timetables and right, I want to do this by this day and I want to do this by this day. So that, and the point is that you visualize that. You have that on a board so that you can see what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to do by when. And I think the notion of the visualization of the achievement is very good. And that's why some people like to make lists. And of course, a good way to achieve things via lists is put on things that are very easy to do.
Yeah.
So it looks as though you can tick some things off very quickly indeed.
Yeah, no, I do think that list
brush
has
my
to
teeth in the morning. Quick, I've done that. Tick.
Yeah, have to have some very basic things. I don't think goals have to be massive every day.
I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah. And I think also I think it's important, especially now, to kind of maybe shift the focus sometimes. So sometimes I think more self-care.
Yeah, and I think there's a balance between being selfish, ego-centered, if you like, and caring for yourself, because sometimes you do need to be selfish in order to care for yourself. We sometimes like to think, oh, well, there's somebody else always there to care for me. Well, that's not necessarily the case. And even if there is, you can't put the whole burden and responsibility onto somebody else. You've got to look after yourself as well. So, pampering yourself, I don't think, particularly in the situation that we're in at the moment, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. And I do think sometimes, as you said, if you don't look after yourself, who is, Like RuPaul says, he says, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell you gonna love somebody else? Can I get an amen? That's what he says. But I think,
apologies for the accent there. I'm not quite sure what my daughter was trying to do.
But I think it's true that, especially at this time, it's a difficult time. So you should remember to take care of yourself. It's not selfish. And I think especially, if when you're working, you're kind of interacting with people. In general, you're interacting with people. How are you going to help these other people or be nice to these people if you're not nice to yourself? How are you going? I think you need to reflect. I think we kind of reflect what we are to others. So if you love yourself, take care of yourself, and, give yourself time to gain your power back or relax and sleep, then you have all of that to give to someone else. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And linked to that, I don't know if this is going off at a tangent a bit, it's also about respecting other people. And what I mean by that is that, okay, so you're living here during lockdown. As our listeners probably know by now, we're not used to living together. This is a relatively new experience to us. I've spent a long time living on my own. You've obviously spent the last 3 years living on your own at university. So we have our independent lives. And yes, it's great being together, but that doesn't mean we have to be on top of one another, if you see what I mean. So I think it's important not only to love yourself, as my daughter put it, but also to respect the other person. So give them space. We, for example, have little rules about physical space. So there are certain areas which, are kind of your space, certain areas which are my space.
Well, they're not rules, they're kind of unwritten
rules. Well, yeah. It's not as though we're going to go to jail or, castigate one another. But the point is that they're boundaries which we've laid down that we respect. Maybe that's a better way of explaining it rather than rules. And also about sharing tasks and sharing duties in the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, as much as I'd like to be the broody teenager in my room not helping.
Well, also, I just don't think that's necessarily in your nature anyway.
Yeah, I don't. That's not me at all, to be fair. But yeah, I think it's a weird thing of shifting what is productive to you. That's what I learned, is that, okay, I don't have schoolwork anymore, so productivity isn't that to me anymore. So what is it now?
But also I think you've raised an interesting concept or idea. When I said what we're going to be talking about, you said motivation and productivity. And I just want to explore what you mean by productivity, again, because we often use the word, we've got to be productive. We've got to be productivity, drives, part of a capitalist culture in a way in which we live, rightly or wrongly. And I sometimes say to myself, but how do we measure productivity? And obviously, a lot of people measure productivity literally through wealth generation in one form or another, capital.
Yeah.
But productivity can be measured in so many different ways in terms of, making yourself happy, making other people happy, making the planet happy. But also, do we really need to be productive? I kind of come back to that question. Do we need to be productive?
Or are we fed that kind of idea that you have to be doing something? Yeah, that's true. Like, why do I have to be productive? Can I not just, if I'm happy?
But, well, that's what I'm trying to say. I think some people need to be productive in order to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
But does happiness necessarily come from productivity, is what I'm asking.
No.
I'm not sure I have an answer to it.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think something that I kind of realized last lockdown, which I guess I still kind of do now, but maybe not as much, is, I don't know if you remember, but after I'd finished my exams and everything, I kind of got tried to bury myself in all these new hobbies, like clay, paint, embroidery.
It was a kind of a reinvention of play.
Yeah.
Like doing paintings, and you did some embroidery and that kind of stuff. And in a sense, you were being productive because you were producing
Doing
things, but it was
day,
purely for your self-pleasure or your self-fulfillment.
Yeah.
It didn't add to the productivity of anybody else, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, so
what I'm saying is that, but that was right for you at that particular point in time.
But
you always needed that.
Yeah, but surely that's still productivity, I think. If you accept that it's not making you money or it's not making you this, but it's you're gaining something else from it. So I don't know if productivity is something with which, I think it's measuring what you're going to gain from it. Are you going to gain knowledge from it? Are you going to gain money from it? Are you going to gain...
Well, and that's the problem, because, of course, at the end of the day, the vast majority of us need money. We have to pay bills. We have to put clothes on our back. We have to put food in our bellies, a roof over our heads, heating, all this kind of stuff. We're very fortunate. Other people are not so fortunate. But in that sense, it's about how you triangulate or combine having income essentially in one form or another, but at the same time being productive and happy. You can be very productive, earn a lot of income, but being unhappy. You can be very unhappy, being unproductive, but not have any income. It's getting those three things lined up, if you see what I mean, in harmony. Because it may be that if one of the things you're very good at, the other things don't fall into place. I'm not sure if any of that actually makes any sense now I've thought it through, but it's getting this balance in life. It's all about balance again. And you can have a lot of money but still be very unhappy. You can have virtually no money at all and be incredibly happy. You can work very, very hard and be very happy. You can work very little and be very happy. The point is that what works for one person may not work for another. There's no panacea. There's no magic formula in terms of how to succeed, in terms of being happy and productive and surviving in life.
I think, in a way, it's like your happiness shouldn't depend on something necessarily, or someone, if that makes sense. I feel like you almost have to learn how to be happy yourself, and not it depending on one sole thing. I don't know. But it might be that you find that one thing that makes you happy, but it might kind of be a part of you. That thing is something that's a part of you that makes you happy, if that makes sense.
I think the other thing is, and again, you possibly don't know this very much, but I've wrestled for quite a lot of my life.
I thought you were going to say actual wrestling, and I was
No,
going to say,
no, I have not. I'm not actually a amateur wrestler that you didn't know about. Yes, I go off and dress up in
Club.
Fight Club that's where I go at weekends when I'm not around. No, not that kind of wrestling in terms of my mind. Mm-hmm. In terms of my own happiness, that I've spent long periods of my life when I haven't felt happy. Whether I would say I've been depressed, I don't know. I think possibly so. But I've been very productive, and I've nearly always worked quite hard at anything that I do. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm happy as a result of it.
Yeah. I think that's I think that's very common, to be fair. That's the thing. I think you have to have a balance between work and actual life, if that makes sense.
Well, and of course
But then, for example, with lockdown, what do you do when what would be your life necessarily you cannot do, if that makes sense? So if someone, for example, worked every day, but the weekend they got to see their friends and do this and that, and all
of that's suddenly taken away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
that's
difficult. Where life is kind of stripped more to the bare minimum and finding solace and happiness within that bare minimum.
And so they have to find substitutes, how they used to create that pleasure or happiness, which is very, very difficult. And we go back. You a certain period in the first lockdown, you try different things. You did some painting, you did some modeling, you deliberately tried to create time to do different pursuits, and that gave you a certain happiness. I think it gave you a certain, or at least the way I saw it, I thought you were deriving pleasure from it.
Yeah, and I think and I kind of realized, why don't I not have a hobby? Like, why do I not do something for just doing it? I think you need to, why not try something new? Because, music used to be my hobby, but it's no longer a hobby when you're trying to make a career out of it. But I think you still need a hobby, and you still need to start something else and then find pleasure in it, and find pleasure in like learning about how to do something, or not being good at it, or I don't know. I just quite enjoyed the process, and I think I've quite started enjoying like going for walks. I quite find it enjoyable, which before you probably wouldn't necessarily pay attention to, but because life's been stripped down to such the bare minimum, or cooking or stuff like that. But at the same time, even though it's enjoyable, I think sometimes I know for me, for example, if I feel like I haven't exercised or sat down in front of the piano, or I don't know, done some of my tasks, or what I now deem as new productivity, and then it's nighttime, and then I feel like crap, I'm like, oh no, I haven't done anything. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I don't know. Did any of that make any sense? It's a bit of a...
Well, again, it's about balance. I mean, I think, everybody has bad days and everybody has good days. And, that's only to be expected. What you've got to do in terms of making changes in your life, if you're having too many bad days in a row, if all you're having is a string of bad days and nothing that you kind of, you're going to bed and thinking, oh, that was another shit day, then you've got to do something. Find these little things. You created hobbies, you created other streams of activity that at least that you could go to bed and thought, oh, right, I've done this. And also don't beat yourself up the whole time thinking, oh my God, I haven't written, my novel yet, or whatever it might be, some big goal that is on your bucket list, but you're not going to do overnight.
Maybe you should say I've wrote my first word. Yay
yes.
me. Wrote my first sentence. You know, I think one of the things I've realised is just to be happy, kind of give yourself a pat on the back. You know, even if you did something that you watched a film and you really enjoyed it, what's wrong with doing that? Or
Absolutely.
or just kind of
there's nothing wrong with me time.
Yeah.
Every now and again. I mean, obviously, if you're living with somebody, it can't be total me time the whole time, because all that's going to do is piss off the other person.
Yeah.
That is about the balance between.
Yeah. We said that. I think we're kind of going round in circles. I was going to pose a new word, which was going to be gratitude and being grateful for things. Because I do think happiness kind of stems out of noticing things and being grateful for things and enjoying things. That's the new concept I wanted to bring in, which I think is quite vital, I've found.
So gratitude rather than happiness?
I think they're interlinked, I would say. I don't know.
Okay. So what are my hobbies then?
I don't know. Cycling.
What? Cycling?
Yeah.
I haven't been out on the bike since you've been here. No.
Why are you asking me what your
No, I just wondered, because it was partly a facetious question, because I don't think I actually have many.
Well, that's what I realised.
I don't think I've got many hobbies.
And I wouldn't say I have hobbies, but I feel like at least now I have equipment if I wanted to do stuff.
I have lots of things that absorb my time. I'm just not sure whether I call them hobbies.
Maybe, yeah, but every time I asked you to paint with me, you said, I take it very seriously, it's a job, which I understand because I kind of do the same with music, but I think you need to learn to not take it seriously, to be bad at something, and to just... That's what I've kind of learnt about music and the process of writing music, is that you have to just go at it, even if nothing comes out of it. Like, it's a shit piece of music. Just stop criticizing it as you're doing it. And that's why I enjoy painting, because I'm like, I know I'm not talent. I'm not a super talent. I'm never claimed to be. So it can literally look like a child's painting, but I did it and I enjoyed doing it. I'm not going to sell it. It's not my work to sell at a gallery. So who's going to criticize it other than me? And why should I keep criticizing it?
Yeah, and I admire you for that, because I know probably where you and I differ is that I'm really bad at doing things that I think I'm not particularly good at.
No, I'm the same. I'm telling you, this is something new for me to do. Like, I remember a friend of mine said, why don't you come play football, join the girls' football team? I think you'd be very good. And I was like, oh no. I used to love playing football when I was 12, 13, but I haven't done it since. Or I used to love doing ballet until I was 16, 17. I haven't done it since, and I'm going to be bad. And then after some point, it's like, so what?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter.
Yeah. I'm not claiming to be a ballerina from Juilliard, so I can still... Why can't I not just go to a class? I'm not claiming to be Picasso. I'm not claiming to be something I'm not. I'm just doing it.
Yeah, but I think maybe that's something you've inherited from me, for which I apologise, because, you know, that's the way... I know there are certain things that I don't do because I just don't think I'll be good at them. And unlike you, I'm not very good at dealing with that.
Yeah, but I think like that's new for me. A new way of trying to deal with it. Because I'm within a creative industry where it's something that I struggle with all the time. I struggle with judging myself, judging my work, and imposter syndrome. Until a certain point, I kind of think, you know what? There's people everywhere that are going to be less talented and more talented than me, but why is that stopping me? There's people that are less talented than you doing exactly what you want to be doing. It's you stopping you, not someone else. And if that wasn't true, Trump wouldn't be president. That's the
True.
biggest evidence of that being true. He just believes in himself, and that's how he did it. So what are you going to lose by believing in
And that's
yourself?
a very good, maybe we should think about ending on that, because I think it's a really positive point that you've made, and it's about believing in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, you talked about loving yourself, but if you also don't believe in yourself and your own abilities and the limits of those abilities, then who else is going to?
Yeah. And what have you got? I don't know, like, what is there to lose necessarily?
Pride.
So I don't know, maybe this is motivation for someone. We started with my motivational speaking. I don't know, like I get it, because I do get, embarrassed and what have you, but at the same time, just...
But people also people have fear of failing.
Yeah.
Fear of failure. I know I do, and I'm talking from personal experience. I have terrible fear of failing.
Oh, I have the same, but, for example, I've started the YouTube channel. I've got 25 subscribers. I could either be like, I should probably stop. 25 subscribers, I'm not at 1,000. Like, who's watching this? But that's not helpful. I might as well say, okay, I'm giving it a shot. I'm just trying my best. I've got a new hobby. I'm just doing it because I enjoy it. And whoever else enjoys it, they can enjoy it too.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we might as well stop this podcast in next week, rather than seeing how far it goes. Give it a year and see what happens.
Well, that's the other thing, is that you have to give these things time. Success, however you measure it, doesn't happen overnight, invariably, at least not for most people. So, as it matters, does it matter that you've only got 25 subscribers if it makes you happy and if you feel that you're being productive and you're achieving things by doing it? No, it doesn't.
Yeah. Or if it's, in a way, if those 25 people feel that, are not fulfilled, but what you're trying to convey is helping those people. If this podcast is helping someone or making them feel less lonely during lockdown or whatever, our goal's achieved.
Precisely. It doesn't matter if that's just one or two people.
Yeah. So there's no point. I think we get stuck on numbers or this, and then, whereas if we get bored of this and we're no longer ourselves fulfilled from this, then that would be a reason to stop.
So, okay, another takeaway message. We're too driven by quantity and not driven enough by quality.
Yeah, as well as other people's reactions and not our own, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but it's the quality of the reactions, it's not the number of likes.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean. Likes are just counting bloody stupid thumbs up, if you see what I mean, or whatever it might be. But it's the quality of the response that matters.
Yeah. So, I don't know, I'd say we're not therapists, and I'd be interested to see, maybe that's what I should do, read up on what some psychologists and psychiatrists have to say about motivation and stuff during the plague. Not the plague.
Plague?
Yeah.
You mean the virus?
Yeah.
It's not quite the plague, no.
I mean, during the pandemic, and to see if anything we've said coincides at all. It may not, but I'd say it's fine to take it easy on yourself and look after yourself, but also, make lists, find hobbies, take some time to go outside for fresh air, to ground yourself.
If you can, that's really important. Fresh air helps, exercise helps.
Gratitude to little things. Trying to find happiness within and with other little things, I think.
Yeah, although I do think, and maybe you would disagree with this, I do think it's actually is important, since we're talking about motivation, to try and push yourself a bit. I actually do think it's important to try and go outside your comfort zone sometimes, whether it's in terms of exercise, whether it's in terms of new experiences. I do think.
Or but like, for example, for someone starting a new hobby, like you said, you have a fear of failure, so you wouldn't start new hobbies. I think that is going out of your comfort zone.
Absolutely.
So starting projects is out of your comfort zone. I think, yeah, I agree.
Because you'll discover new motivation by going outside your comfort zone, hopefully, and thinking, oh gosh, I really didn't think I would be able to do that, or I didn't feel I'd be comfortable doing that. There's a danger that we retreat too much, to the couch, by which I don't mean, the mental couch, not the physical couch, although sometimes both, because it's the easiest thing to do. And I think sometimes we do need to push ourselves and say, oh yeah, I'm going to try something new. And it might be as simple as, I'm going to completely cook a dish, or actually even, cook a cake or whatever it might be for the first time ever. Just do something entirely different. And it might be a disaster, but at least you've tried.
Yeah. Yes. So I think that's
so maybe that's what we should end on. Try something different tomorrow.
Yeah, and let us know what you tried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whether it succeeded or not.
Yeah, and whether you're going to do it again. Did you enjoy doing that? That was new, if that makes sense. Because if you enjoyed it, then maybe you live and learn.
Indeed.
So I think that's where we can end this. See you next week. Thanks for listening. Subscribe, follow us.
Tell all your friends to subscribe.
Survive.
Yeah. Survive and subscribe, yes. Survive, yes. And survive and subscribe. In fact, survive by subscribing.
Yeah, and
because we want at least 26 subscribers by next week.
And also,
I'm going into quantity now, not the quality. No, but what matters is that 26 person is going to really enjoy this.
But also I was going to say, if you do follow us on Instagram or any socials, and you have any topics to suggest that you'd like us to talk about.
Yeah, we want to hear those topics.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
We can do some Q&As. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? They could send in their questions and we could both answer them.
Yeah. So, right. See you next week.
Yeah, bye.